Hi everyone, it's Rachel, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make these super cute charms using shrink plastic and vinyl. For this tutorial I'm going to be using my new Cricut Maker cutting machine, which was kindly gifted to me by Cricut. I have to say that I was very excited to receive this in the mail because I've been wanting a Cricut machine for a while now for craft, but particularly because it will become very handy when creating resources for school and my classroom each year. The Cricut Maker can cut hundreds of materials quickly and easily with the fine point blade, plus it also has a rotary blade which can cut through virtually any fabric if you are into sewing. You can see here that there are a bunch of different Cricut tools available, from blades, pens, engraving, debossing and more. If you're interested, the Cricut Maker is available at Spotlight, Big W, Harvey Norman and Costco in Australia. Anyway, moving on to the tutorial, I firstly jumped onto the Cricut app on my iPad. This is an easy to learn design space software which is loaded with advanced features including offline mode, print then cut and also snap matte. The software can be used on iOS, Android, Windows and Mac devices. Today I'm going to be using some designs which can be found in the design space. However, there is also the flexibility to upload your own designs, including images and fonts for free in a variety of file formats. So from these images, I firstly chose this Kawaii deer charm. Because I'm going to be using shrink plastic as the base of my charm, I need to create an offset around the image, which I did by going to the layers and making the bottom cut layer visible. I then needed to add an extra little part onto the design where I could later hole punch the shrink plastic to allow me to add a jump ring. I selected a circle from the shapes option at the bottom of the design space and I reshaped it into more of an oval. I then altered the arrangement and I sent the oval to the back, and then I needed to select those two layers and weld them together. Finally, I sized it to about double the size that I wanted my finished charm to be, as shrink plastic of course shrinks. You can see here the other designs that I also decided to choose from the design space. Now it's time to cut out the shrink plastic, so I took my sheet of plastic and my blue Cricut cutting mat. There's a clear sheet layer over the top which you need to remove so that the sticky part of the mat can be used. I placed my shrink plastic onto the cutting mat and pressed it down so that it would stick and stay in place. And perfect, there's my face. Hi. Once the shrink plastic was placed down, I then loaded it into my Cricut machine. A great bonus is that on the top it includes a slot where you can place in your device, and it even fits my overly large iPad. Anyway, in the app I pressed on the Make It button and then I selected the layout which included the backings. The setting that I chose to use to cut the shrink plastic was acetate, which I did have to search for. This setting worked pretty well with the shrink plastic, which is quite thick, and because I did use this setting, it actually cuts over the same marks twice as well. When it had finished cutting, I pressed the cut button again instead of unloading the mat. This allowed the Cricut to cut over exactly the same spot once more, rather than unloading and reloading, which would calibrate slightly differently. Here is what the designs look like once they have been cut. Because the shrink plastic is very thick, the blade didn't cut all the way through, so I did have to carefully pop each design out. I needed to do this really slowly, but even then I did have a few casualties because they were quite fragile, so I just redid them. Then I took my hole punch and I made a hole in each one for the jump rings later on. I placed the shrink plastic on a sheet of baking paper and then onto my oven tray. These baked in my little toaster oven at 150 degrees Celsius, and they only took about 20 seconds to shrivel up and shrink. So this is what we have once they have been baked. They came out slightly smaller than I expected, but I guess that's alright. It's probably just lucky I like working with miniature things. Next it was time to add some colour and cut the vinyl. In the design space I removed the offsets and I just left the designs. When I went to the Make It option, I could see all the colours that I needed to use down the side. For this project, I am going to be using permanent glossy vinyl. I cut each of the vinyl colours to size and I placed them on my cutting mat to be cut in the Cricut. I probably need to mention too that because my shrink plastic backing is now much smaller, I did have to resize these designs before cutting them in the vinyl, otherwise they would be way too large and definitely not fit on the charm. To work out the new sizes, I pretty much just used a ruler and I measured up the shrink plastic and then I just resized them in the app. So I just continued to cut and cut and cut, making my way through all the colours that I needed. And righty-o, here we are. So these are all the pieces cut and ready to go. I then took my Cricut transfer sheet and I trimmed off a small piece to use. Firstly, I'm going to be creating the Kawaii worm. Starting with the brown layer at the back, I pulled up the vinyl like a sticker and then I attached it to my transfer sheet. I positioned this over top of the plastic and lined it up before pressing down on the vinyl and removing the clear transfer sheet. For the other layers, I had some small pieces of vinyl which needed to be removed, so I used my Cricut weeding tool to help pull them up. I then pretty much just continued this process with all of the other charm designs as well. Lastly, I took my gold jump rings and lobster clasps and I threaded these onto the charm through the hole that I had created with the hole punch earlier on. So here are what the finished Kawaii charms look like. I really love how these came out and I think the designs I chose are super cute. There were actually a lot of cute ones on the design space which made it really hard to decide. I'm definitely going to have to go back and try out some of the others as well. These charms did end up turning out quite small because the shrink plastic shrunk more than I thought it would, but I think they would be perfect to hang on a pencil case or backpack zipper. So thank you so much for watching this video and to Cricut for gifting me the Cricut Maker. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel for lots more crafty videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys!